Poised on a razor-sharp ridge high in the Andes Mountains sits one of the most spectacular places in the world, Machu Picchu. Perched 450 meters above the Urubamba River, the city once contained everything required for daily life. Houses, fields, water channels, all with breathtaking views. But Machu Picchu was no ordinary city. Dotted amongst its terraces are enigmatic structures, magnificent temples somehow linked with the sun, and a grand stone palace. They provide tantalizing clues as to why anyone would build on such forbidding terrain.
The site selected is a particularly difficult one, just from a technical standpoint.
Architect Vince Lee believes that no one would choose to build here without good reason.
There's very little workspace. It's just on a very sharp mountain ridge. There's almost no flat land.
So why would anyone build in this impossible location? What drove Machu Picchu's makers to construct a city above the clouds? In 1438, Chanca warriors launched a massive attack on their neighbors, the Inca. With the enemy poised at the gates of his capital, the old Inca emperor fled to safety. But his son was defiant. Spurred on by a vision predicting victory, he led the Inca into a seemingly impossible struggle. Against the odds, the Inca crushed the invaders and proclaimed their young leader a hero, bestowing upon him a prophetic new name, Pachacuti, meaning transformer of the earth. And Pachacuti wasted no time living up to his title. Seizing power from his father, he embarked upon a campaign to conquer neighboring nations. Pachacuti's military might quickly prevailed. Within his lifetime, he laid the groundwork for an empire that would stretch up and down the Pacific coast of South America.
I think of him as a sort of Alexander the Great of the Andes.
Author and explorer Peter Frost has traced Incan history for 30 years.
Pachacuti was the man who turned the Incas from a regional power in the Cusco Valley into an empire, the biggest empire the Americas ever saw.
Spreading from modern-day Colombia in the north to Chile and Argentina in the south, the empire of the Inca would command the loyalty of more than 10 million people. Pachacuti ordered a series of massive building projects that would help his army control this vast territory. But military engineering was only part of the emperor's grand plan. Pachacuti also planned a spectacular city to demonstrate his powerful new status. Machu Picchu can accommodate up to 1,000 people, yet it was built high up in the Andes Mountains, 160 kilometers from the center of his empire. Some experts think it was a royal retreat.
The ruling paradigm at the moment is that this was a winter palace of the Inca Pachacuti, and he held his court here for 2 or 3 months during the winter.
But Peter Frost believes this theory is too limited.
It's easy to slip into thinking European, you know, that Henry VIII's Hampton Court or whatever, Windsor Castle, you know, Versailles. I find that inadequate.
For Frost, the answers may lie in the Incas' spiritual beliefs. The Inca worshipped natural features of the landscape and the heavens, honoring them as gods. This deference extended to the Emperor Pachacuti.
We have to remember that the Inca emperor was almost a god, you know, he was...
At Machu Picchu, researchers have identified a unique combination of natural features that create a religious phenomenon known as Axis Mundi, a sacred center. The site is a spiritual union of the sky, mountain, and rivers. Sacred mountains lie at the compass points from Machu Picchu. Directly above the holy mountain that overlooks the site shines the constellation known as the Southern Cross, whose perfect alignment in autumn signifies the start of the harvest. Machu Picchu is surrounded by natural features imbued with spiritual significance, making it a unique place for Pachacuti to worship and commune with the gods. Now that Pachacuti had chosen this site for his spiritual retreat, his engineers, mere mortals, had to achieve the vision of their god-emperor.
I think the emperor probably just said, well, nevertheless, that's where I want my, my palace, and so it's up to you guys to figure out how to do it.
For decades, Vince Lee has wrestled with the mystery of how the Inca moved and worked the stone. The terrain is a jungle-covered ridge of fractured rock at an altitude of 2,450 meters. How did Pachacuti's engineers tame this location? How did they quarry and move tons of rock with only the most primitive of tools? And how did they protect the site from the heavy rains and earthquakes that threaten to send it tumbling into the river below? Machu Picchu is a truly spectacular site, but its location caused huge problems for its builders. The ridge is uneven, strewn with fractured and broken granite. Sheer cliffs plunge down to the forests below. Each year, torrential storms can dump 200 centimeters of rain onto the mountainside. It is also prone to earthquakes. In minutes, landslides caused by these conditions could have carried the city away. As they began clearing the Machu Picchu site, by nature to repel humans. Their spectacular solution is clear to see today. Terraces, hundreds of them, carved into the slopes of Machu Picchu. They occupy an area roughly the size of 12 football pitches. These terraces carved usable space from the mountain and controlled runoff to prevent erosion. The Inca used these fields to grow food and ceremonial crops. The terrace walls also provided a hidden benefit. During the day, they absorb heat from the sun. At night, the walls radiate this warmth into the earth, which would have protected the crops. But the terraces had an even more important function, reinforcing the slope, which falls away at a gradient of up to 50%. The secret is in the design of the terrace walls. These walls are sloped back, or battered at about a 5-degree angle, bracing the hillside by pushing against it and channeling the weight of the soil into the ground below. The terraces were critical to support the construction of hundreds of structures on the mountain slopes. And there is more to these terraces than meets the eye. Recent excavations reveal one of the hidden secrets of Pachacuti's engineers. 60% of Machu Picchu is underground. After evening out the terrain, clearing the rock, and backfilling crevices, Pachacuti... They put large stones at the bottom, then increasingly smaller stones almost a meter thick as they neared the surface. And then they added sand and humus and topsoil. This ingenious design gave the walls a solid foundation, and the smaller stones on top with the larger below forces rainwater to percolate down slowly through narrow cracks and disperse evenly through the terrace, slowing and regulating the flow of water and preventing the erosion of topsoil. At the bottom of the slope, on the inside of the terrace wall, the water is channeled sideways towards one of the larger canals that drain the site, so that it flows harmlessly into the valley far below. The sophistication of the terraces is just a hint of how brilliantly adaptive the Inca were. Their ingenuity was vital when it came to sourcing materials to build Pachacuti's sacred city. His ambitious plan required tons of stone. Bringing materials up the mountain without wheeled vehicles, cattle or horses would have been almost impossible. Fortunately, Pachacuti's stonemasons had a solution. Giant granite boulders were strewn all across the ridge.
Cubic foot is just a little block that much on a side, weighs about 175 pounds, which is to say you and I can't pick it up. You know, and that would be one of the smaller stones in the project. Almost all the stones in those buildings are at least that big or bigger.
So how on earth did the Inca move rocks weighing up to 20 tons from the quarry to the site?
The logistics of creating Inca architecture were enormous.
For Professor Susan Niles, the Incas' greatest challenge was their lack of sophisticated equipment.
This is not a culture with wheels, with draft animals, with the kinds of machines that we take for granted. This is using human labor to move things.
This drawing, penned in the 17th century, illustrates how the Inca might have pulled it off. The Inca weaved plant and animal fibers into thicker strands, and then twisted the strands into great lengths of strong rope. Using these ropes, Pachacuti's work crews would have been able to drag huge stones into place. But even a level surface would have presented a problem with this method. The friction created beneath the rock is enormous, and the leading edge of rock constantly scoops up dirt, creating even more resistance. Pachacuti's stonemasons had to find ways of overcoming this. First, to lighten the load, they rough-shaped the granite in the quarry, chipping off the excess with hammer stones. At Machu Picchu's quarry, you can still see where stonemasons left their mark.
You can see that all around this section of the rock, they've been cutting with the hammer stones. They were cutting this so that this end of the block would eventually fall off, and then they would start to work it into a shape that they could use for building.
Once they had a large stone roughly shaped, they employed yet another shrewd trick to help them move it.
It was very clever. They would take the bottom of the stone and smooth it off, and they would chip off all the edges all the way around so that it ended up slightly convex like the bottom of a boat or a barge. And that way they could not only...
The evidence.
Completed or not, the site is one of the most amazing structures in the world. Channels feeding the city with an abundant and constant supply of water. A massive earthquake and the ability to build megastructures in the most challenging locations. And to an emperor determined to prove his place among the gods.